You're listening to the Power Agent Blogcast, empowering agents to elevate their business to the next level.
Challenges are just a guide, leading you, don't run and hide. You've got the heart, you've got the drive, feel it pound, you're alive. Power Agent.
Picture this. You're walking into a federal courthouse.
Okay.
It's, dusty, quiet, methodically boring. You're surrounded by these towering stacks of dry legal briefs.
Right, the typical gray suit environment.
Exactly. Attorneys speaking in hushed tones about antitrust statutes and jurisdictional boundaries. But then you blink.
And the scene completely changes.
Completely. Suddenly, that exact same room is a neon-lit arena. I mean, megaphones are blaring, giant billboards are flashing outside the windows, and highly targeted Instagram ads are just blasting from every corner.
It really is staggering.
We are talking about a scenario that went from a totally dry legal filing to a full-blown multi-million-dollar marketing war in exactly 72 hours?
Yeah, the corporate whiplash here is it's wild. Because we generally view legal proceedings as these really slow, methodical, binary processes.
Very predictable.
Right. But the moment you inject, billions of dollars of market capitalization and a battle for industry dominance into the equation, the courtroom ceases to be a place of quiet arbitration.
It becomes a stage.
Exactly. It transforms into a soundstage for a much louder public performance.
And that performance is completely unavoidable right now if you are anywhere near the real estate industry. So welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
If you're joining us today, you're probably someone who wants to cut through all that noise, right? Bypassing the absolute information overload to find the real, applicable value for your daily life.
Which is so critical right now.
Today, we are pulling our insights from this really fascinating, highly strategic piece of source material called Beyond the Spectacle, Winning the Real Estate Marketing War.
And the spectacle in question is, of course, the massive antitrust showdown unfolding between two absolute giants in the sector, Zillow and Compass.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission today is not just to gawk at corporate drama from the sidelines.
No, we need to dig deeper than that.
Right. We are going to break down the mechanics of this clash, absolutely. But more importantly, we are going to extract the actionable ground-level strategies for professionals and, honestly, for anyone navigating a noisy, chaotic industry.
Identifying the difference between noise and signal is the crucial distinction we really have to make today.
Because everyone around you is weaponizing their marketing budgets to just scream for your attention.
Yeah, the headlines surrounding this lawsuit are incredibly loud, and they're designed to provoke a reaction.
Clickbait, essentially.
Precisely. But the most important lessons contained in our source material, the structural strategies that actually protect a business, they're quiet.
So before we can ignore the noise, we have to understand what it actually is, right?
Right. We need to look at why these two massive entities are suddenly shouting at everyone.
So let's trace how this escalated from a judge's desk to a literal billboard.
Well, the catalyst arrived late on a Friday afternoon. A federal judge issued a specific order directed at M.R. Reed.
That's the primary multiple listing service for Greater Chicago, right?
Yeah.
And parts of some neighboring states.
Yes, exactly. So the judge mandated that MRED restore Zillow's access to roughly 43,000 Chicago area listings while this ongoing antitrust case proceeds through the courts.
We should clarify the scope immediately, though. This judicial order applies specifically to MRED. It does not apply directly to Compass.
Good distinction. The broader context is a federal antitrust lawsuit filed under the Sherman Act. Zillow is basically alleging that MRE and Compass engaged in anti-competitive behavior.
Okay, so to understand the mechanism here, we have to look at how data syndication actually functions.
Right, because an agent enters a property into MRB, and ordinarily that listing data doesn't just sit on a local server.
It flows outward through established digital pipelines to thousands of endpoints.
With the largest being consumer portals like Zillow.
It's essentially a raw material supply chain. Like, if the localized listing data is the crude oil, MRE operates as the regional pipeline.
I like that analogy.
And then Zillow is the nationwide network of gas stations relying on that continuous, uninterrupted flow to serve its consumer base.
That perfectly captures the dynamic. Because Zillow's antitrust argument claims that MRED and Compass colluded to pinch that regional pipeline. They allege Compass used this massive chunk of Chicago data as leverage threatening to restrict the flow of local inventory, unless Zillow agreed to universally display Compass's private off-market listings nationwide on Compass's preferred terms.
And the history here is deeply intertwined. I mean, Compass, which is now the country's largest brokerage by transaction value after they acquired Anywhere Real Estate, they previously sued Zillow.
Right, over its listing access standards.
But Compass ultimately dropped that suit back in March after a judge denied their request for a temporary injunction.
So we have this slow-boiling legal tension regarding who controls the flow of data. It's been building for over a year.
And then Friday afternoon hits.
The judge temporarily unpinches the pipeline for those 43,000 listings.
And the speed of the subsequent escalation just defies belief. By Friday night, literally hours later, Compass CEO Robert Refkin is posting digital renderings of billboards.
The messaging was blunt.
Yeah, Zillow doesn't have all the listings. And he wasn't just posting them, he was actively crowdsourcing locations from working agents online.
Asking them where to deploy these physical assets in their local markets.
And Zillow mounted an immediate counteroffensive, right?
Oh, absolutely. They launched a blitz of paid Instagram advertisements.
Bypassing the legal theater entirely.
Exactly, speaking directly to the users. Their ads pushed agents toward the Be on Zillow direct feed program, which is a structural workaround.
Because a direct feed is basically a proprietary pipe running straight from the individual broker to the portal.
Right, entirely bypassing that traditional regional pipeline we just discussed.
It feels like two giants fighting in a sandbox, but they're both aggressively trying to convince the kids building the sandcastles, the agents, to pick a side.
What's fascinating here is how this is no longer just a legal fight. It's a meticulously crafted marketing fight where working agents are the intended audience.
But why target the agents so aggressively? I mean, they aren't the ones in court.
Because the underlying strategy is to equate their corporate drama with the individual agent's livelihood.
Which brings us to what the source material identifies as the absolute most dangerous trap a professional can fall into right now.
The illusion of motion.
Yes.
The text breaks this down brilliantly for what it terms a power agent. It draws this hard, unforgiving line between motion and progress.
Motion's loud.
Very loud. The antitrust filings, the massive billboard campaigns, the targeted Instagram ad blitzes, all of that is motion. It creates the illusion that critical business is being conducted.
While progress, conversely, is completely quiet.
Exactly. Progress is the nuanced conversation happening on a sofa in a seller's living room.
Or a buyer successfully securing the PDF of a mortgage pre-approval letter.
Right. It's the deeply unglamorous, methodical follow-up call made 3 days after a listing presentation, long after the competition has moved on.
Wait, let me challenge that premise, though. If I put myself in the shoes of a working professional, just ignoring this feels incredibly reckless.
How?
Well, if the main digital portal I rely on to market my clients' multi-million-dollar assets suddenly loses tens of thousands of listings, or drastically alters its syndication rules, doesn't that directly impact my ability to sell?
It feels like it does, yes.
It feels less like a distraction and more like an existential threat to daily operations, like something that requires my absolute full attention.
And the logic of that fear is exactly why the trap is so universally effective. But the source material provides a necessary reality check to dismantle that anxiety.
Okay, lay it on me.
Consider the actual downstream effects. If the federal court rules against Zillow next month, what fundamentally changes in the daily mechanics of an individual agent's business?
I mean,
Or if the court rules against Compass, what changes? For the vast majority of working agents, the answer is absolutely nothing.
unless they allow the spectacle to consume their operational bandwidth.
Exactly. Buyers and sellers do not sign representation agreements with a software portal. They don't sign them with a national brokerage brand.
They sign them with the individual agent sitting across the table,
It requires separating the digital tool from the professional tradesperson.
which the source drives home with what it calls a power fact.
Yes, $2 billion corporations running paid advertisements against each other is simply a marketing line item on their quarterly earnings report.
Right. It is not a referendum on an individual's career trajectory.
Professionals cannot afford to confuse a tech giant's massive marketing spend with their own localized business plan.
So the agent's internal job is to ignore the billboards and focus on revenue-generating progress. But how do they manage the external pressure?
From the clients.
Yeah. How do they handle the client who is deeply distracted by those headlines? Let's picture a very real scenario. It's Monday morning, an agent's phone rings, and it's an active seller.
And she's panicked.
Completely panicked.
Yeah.
Because her cousin's property in Chicago, mysteriously disappeared from Zillow for 2 days over the weekend due to this exact data squabble.
And she is terrified the exact same blackout is going to happen to her listing.
In that moment of crisis, she is not asking for a detailed analysis of the Sherman Act.
No, she doesn't care about jurisdictional boundaries or regional data pipelines.
She is fundamentally asking if her asset is safe and if her hired professional is still in control of the process.
The psychological dynamic makes me think of commercial air travel.
Oh, the flight attendant analogy, yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on a flight that suddenly hits severe, unexpected turbulence?
Oh, yeah. Every passenger immediately grips the armrests.
Right. And what happens next is critical. You don't look out the window to try and calculate the wind shear. You certainly don't want the captain coming over the intercom to deliver a 20-minute aeronautical engineering lecture on atmospheric pressure drops.
That would just make it worse.
You immediately look at the flight attendants. If the flight attendant looks panicked, the cabin panics.
But if the flight attendant is calmly pouring ginger ale and chatting with a colleague, you instantly exhale.
Exactly. The physical environment anchors your emotional response. The agent has to serve as that flight attendant for the transaction.
And the source outlines 3 specific deliverables designed to establish that exact psychological anchor. Tools an agent must bring to what the text calls the kitchen table to neutralize the panic.
What's the first one?
First, they provide a calm, highly simplified explanation. The agent simply states that 2 large tech companies are squabbling over data transmission rules, and the federal courts will sort out the details.
Keep it high level, factual, and incredibly boring.
Exactly. Explicitly avoid deep dives into the legal mechanics. Second, the agent presents a written, 1-page marketing plan.
So showing the seller exactly and transparently everywhere their home will appear.
Yes. In both the digital and physical marketplace, it strips away all the ambiguity. And finally, they offer a direct verbal promise.
A guarantee.
Right. The agent looks the seller in the eye and says, if anything changes with how your home is viewed globally, I will be the first person to call you.
And the efficacy of this approach connects right back to you, the listener. Because the author of this source brings 40 years of industry coaching experience to this observation.
Which is that sellers fundamentally do not care about the inside baseball of the real estate industry.
Corporate data disputes are irrelevant to them. Their entire universe of concern is limited to what happens to the specific physical listing they entrusted to you.
Which naturally creates a massive dividing line between market participants. The professionals who lose ground in this current climate are the ones who use the systemic chaos as a shield.
Hiding behind the headlines to justify a lack of progress.
Saying, oh, it was a slow week because the portals are fighting.
But the market winners stay incredibly calm. They get hyper-specific with their data, and they prioritize the seller's immediate emotional and financial interests.
Taking that kitchen table philosophy, that concept of being the calm flight attendant, and translating it into a concrete, executable strategy requires documentation.
Which leads us to our 3-step action plan for this week.
Step 1. The foundation of that strategy is building the written marketing disclosure.
A plain language, single-page document generated for every active listing in a portfolio.
It details exactly where the property will be syndicated and, just as importantly, where it will not be marketed.
And it outlines the secondary backup plan if a primary portal feed unexpectedly goes down. This ties into a core philosophy from the Source's Power program. What gets documented gets done. But I have to ask, is a single piece of paper really going to hold enough weight to calm down a highly anxious, modern seller?
You'd be surprised.
We are talking about consumers whose primary metric for success is literally opening a specific app on their smartphone and visually verifying that their house is prominently displayed. Does a printed disclosure actually overcome that digital anxiety?
Because the piece of paper is not merely transmitting data, it serves as physical proof of control.
Ah, I see.
When a professional places a documented, systematic plan in front of an anxious person, it anchors the conversation. It visually communicates, I have anticipated the specific structural vulnerability, and I have a pre-engineered response.
It shifts the seller's psychological state, from feeling at the mercy of a software algorithm to feeling protected by a competent advisor.
Precisely. Which naturally leads to the next vulnerability, which is relying too heavily on a single point of failure.
Step 2.
Audit the actual pipeline. Agents need to sit down and rigorously map out every single portal, brokerage site, and local network that currently carries their active listings.
And more importantly, trace the actual origin point of their closed buyer leads over the past year.
Yes. Doing that forensic work usually reveals a surprising truth. When professionals actually track their data, they find their lead generation is far more fragmented than they assumed.
The business isn't entirely dependent on one giant portal.
Discovering that lead diversity is highly reassuring news to share with a nervous seller.
Right, being able to say, don't worry about this one site experiencing an outage today. Our internal data shows 60% of our qualified showings actually originated from these 3 other independent avenues.
It replaces fear with localized data.
And step 3. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the next strategic move goes against every impulse we have in the modern digital age.
When agents feel anxiety about these industry shifts, their immediate instinct is to jump on social media to prove they are paying attention.
But the source argues the exact opposite. Stop forwarding screenshots.
The urge to participate in the drama is incredibly potent. An agent sees a CEO posting a wild billboard rendering, and the immediate reflex is to screenshot it.
Post it to their own Instagram story, maybe add a poll to keep their clients informed.
The source vehemently warns against this. Sharing the billboard war on social media does not inform your clients. It literally provides free digital impressions to massive corporations while actively degrading your own professional authority.
Because sellers don't need their agent acting as a corporate pundit or an amateur legal analyst. They need to see their agent doing the actual unglamorous work of selling the property.
And the author notes a beautiful historical anchor here. For 100 years, through world wars, economic depressions, massive technological shifts, the absolute most valuable person in a real estate transaction has never been a billboard.
Or an algorithm or a specific app.
It has always been the trusted advisor who answers the phone, drafts the strategy, and tells the truth. Portals will inevitably come and go. Trusted advisors do not.
But if the solution of simply being a trusted advisor is so timeless, we have to ask why we are witnessing this massive tectonic friction right now.
Why billions of dollars are being mobilized over this specific jurisdictional fight today.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, stepping back from the weekly operational strategy reveals a much larger shift occurring across the entire macroeconomic landscape of the industry.
Because this antitrust lawsuit isn't happening in a vacuum. It feels like a symptom of a much larger disease.
Industries universally get incredibly loud right before they fundamentally reorganize.
And we're watching the structural reorganization of real estate happen in real time.
Consider the other massive industry debates occurring simultaneously. We have the fierce battles over the clear cooperation policy.
Oh, let's unpack the mechanics of that policy for a second, because it is central to this friction. Clear cooperation essentially mandates that the moment an agent publicly markets a property, whether by putting a sign in the yard or a post on a public social media feed, they have 1 business day to submit that listing data to the central MLS pipeline.
It forces the listing data into the public syndication feed. It was designed to prevent brokers from keeping listings off the open market.
But simultaneously, we've seen a massive explosion in private listing networks.
Right. These are closed, proprietary digital ecosystems where massive brokerages keep inventory exclusive to their own internal agents.
Completely bypassing that main public pipeline to retain leverage or exclusivity.
So we have consumer portals fighting to force every drop of data into the public syndication feed so they can monetize the web traffic.
And conversely, the massive brokerages who actually generate the listings want to leverage their size to keep some of that data proprietary, or at least heavily dictate the terms of how it gets displayed nationally.
The underlying conflict is identical across all these seemingly disparate arguments, whether it's the clear cooperation policy, the rise of private networks, or the specific antitrust showdown in Chicago.
They are all the exact same question in different disguises.
Who controls where a listing is marketed, and who ultimately gets to profit from that control?
The localized data of the American home has become the ultimate commodity.
Exactly.
So if we are in the middle of a massive industry reorganization over the ultimate commodity, how is an individual professional supposed to operate?
That's the challenge.
It feels nearly impossible to build a long-term business strategy when you genuinely don't know what the structural landscape is going to look like when the dust finally settles. I mean, will the portals win total syndication? Will the brokerages successfully silo the data? Do professionals just sit on their hands and wait for a federal verdict?
The beauty of the source material's final analysis is its operational clarity. You do not need to successfully predict the ending to win in the middle.
That's a relief.
This massive, complex question of data control is not going to be settled this week. It won't be settled this year. It's going to be a grinding, multi-year process decided gradually through federal court rulings.
And incremental tweaks to local MLS policies.
And most importantly, through the daily trust decisions made by millions of individual agents and sellers.
The digital landscape will undoubtedly shift.
But the role of the trusted guide navigating that landscape remains totally secure, provided you actually act like a guide. You simply need to be the reliable constant your sellers can count on when the macro environment gets incredibly loud.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We promised you actionable strategies to cut through the information overload, and the core lesson here is radically simple, even if it requires immense discipline to execute.
Let the billion-dollar tech companies and massive brokerages fight over the billboards.
Let them burn their marketing budgets trying to sway public opinion on jurisdictional antitrust law. Your job is not to be a spectator to their corporate drama.
Your job is to close the browser tab, pick up the phone, call your client list, and do the actual quiet work of progressing your business forward. This raises an important question, though, if we extrapolate this trend into the future.
Oh?
We've established that this entire war is fundamentally about who controls the listing data and who profits from it, the massive brokerages or the digital portals.
Right.
But what happens down the road if the homeowners themselves wake up and realize that they hold the ultimate commodity?
Right.
Could the next massive industry disruption entirely bypass both the brokerages and the portals? Imagine a decentralized system where sellers directly monetize their own property data.
Controlling access and syndication to their homes like a secure digital asset.
If that realization takes hold, the current multi-million-dollar fight over billboards might just be the warm-up act.
That is a staggering thought.
Yeah.
If the originators of the data realized their leverage, it would completely rewrite the rules of the game. Definitely something for all of us to mull over as the landscape continues to shift.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, when the quiet courtroom turns into a neon-lit arena with megaphones and targeted ads, your best strategic move is just walk out the door and get back to the living room. Focus on the progress, ignore the motion, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.